and I have with me Skylar. Tell me what you are doing here at this organization.
Well, it's good to be here with you here at this event. I'm Skylar Dunsing. I'm the founder of the United States Patriot Society. We're a conservative nonprofit organization based out of Wisconsin, but we're nationwide. And we're working to unite with fellow conservatives and patriots across the country in defense of our great Constitution, our founding principles, and to push back against this radical tyranny and evil, this communism which has hijacked our great nation.
I could have said it better myself. But let me ask you the one important question. Can you trust our elections?
Absolutely not. Election integrity has to be priority number one.
What makes you say you can't trust it? Tell us what you see.
I would say just look at the previous results. There is no way that a guy who has awful policies, he's been a radical, he's continued to become more and more radical now because he's a communist puppet. He never even left his basement. We cannot trust our elections in this country because of the way that we have the machines and the fraud and the voter spikes that happen right in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't have election day in this country, we have election season. So election integrity has to be priority number one, and I would like to see our Congress focus more on that.
Welcome back to another episode of Honor Thy Vote. I'm Paul Beran.
I'm Cynthia Walsh.
Today, we're going to take a really deep dive into the effects of election integrity and what happens if it fails. If we don't manage to control our elections, and we end up losing our elections to the powers that be, well, folks, there's someone who's actually lived all this before and seen all this before. And her name is VanFleet. She authored this book, Miles America, the subtitle being A Survivor's Warning. So she's really giving us a warning for what we are about to see ourselves if we don't really knuckle down and make sure that we have a fair and honest election and that we vote righteously for conservative American values and not Marxist values, and not allow communism to slip into our country, because we just don't really quite, as Americans, understand what that means. But VanFleet does.
She saw it before everyone else did. Mm-hmm. And when she spoke at her school board meeting, it went viral.
Right. In Loudoun County in Virginia.
Because everyone else didn't see it until she pointed it out.
And she noticed all the things, all the markers that was happening in America today, and as far back as really, she said 2016. And it all came to her that this is something that she's lived before. And she started making notes to herself and talking about it.
She was warning us.
Yeah, and then finally Newt Gingrich is the one that said, you know, you need to write a book. And that's where this book came from. And you'll get a chance to meet VanFleet here in a few moments. But first, we want to remind everyone that Operation Eyeball, as our sponsor, has some unique properties too that everyone really needs to take a look at. If you go to operationeyeball.com, you'll see all the various aspects that Operation Eyeball offers of the election integrity operation and helping the groups that are out there to really do what they can to keep a safe and honest election strong here in America.
Very important.
Yeah, it is important. The majority of Americans, they're patriots. They love America. They're here for a reason. They love this country.
Yes,
and they stay here, and they're willing to fight for this country. And they are voting right now, their hearts. And there's a movement that's trying to block all that and change that. And as even President Obama said, to fundamentally change our country. We like our country the way it is, please. We don't want to change it, right? The Constitution is what we believe in, and it's sound. It works. It's done pretty well for the last 200, almost 50 years, right?
Exactly.
So we're going to see in just a few moments a promo that we produced with President Trump that will hopefully defend our Constitution, hopefully defend our election. It's the Arrest Reward Fund that we presented to President Trump. And when he heard it for the first time, he said, that's a great idea. So why don't you watch right now his reaction, and then we'll come back with the author, G. VanFleet of Miles America.
What do you think of a cash reward, sir, for anyone who turns in a tip or lead for somebody who's trying to meddle with the election?
Oh, I love it. Not a cash reward. A cash reward, yeah, for turning in.
Right.
But they got to go to jail.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I love the idea. I think it's a great idea.
Thank
you
you.
have that? Yeah,
I do.
Let
I
me
do.
have that. Let me have that. You know what? I've never heard of that, and I think it's a great idea.
Help restore fair and honest elections in America. Donate as much as you can. The bigger the reward, the larger the incentive to be honest. Log on to OperationEyeball.com.
It's a great idea.
We are here joined with not only my co-host Cynthia, but we also have G. VanFleet. Hello, G. So nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us on the show. Now, we're all facing here as Americans a major change that's going on in our country. But you've seen all this before. This is a repeat performance for you. And it actually prompted you to write this book. For those folks who have seen this book, read this book, bravo. Those who haven't, would you please give us a real quick synopsis? First of all, what caused you to write this book? And tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, it's a good question to start with, why I write that book. So first of all, I came from a communist country, China. I spent my first 26 years there, and I had the first experience of the brutal cultural revolution that Mao launched. And it lasted for 10 years, from 1966 to 1976, when he died. And that was the 10 years of my youth. And first of all, let me tell you a little bit of my background. And I was born into the slavery of communism. I spent my first 26 years in Mao's China. And the entire Cultural Revolution, which started in 1966 and 1976, was my youth growing up as a schoolgirl. When it started, I was 7. When it finished, I was in the countryside, working in the fields. Why? Because Mao sent all the young people to the countryside because the Cultural Revolution destroyed everything, including the economy, and there's nothing for us as young people. So he sent us to pretty much labor camps to be re-educated by the peasants to be better communists. That was my experience. And eventually he died, and his successor, Deng Xiaoping, reopened university. And I was able to go to college at the age of 19 to learn, majored in English. In 1986, I was able to come to America. And that was the beginning of my journey to really understand what freedom is. And so after I came here, I had this misconception that many, many people still have, including Americans, not just immigrants, that freedom in America is just something that is there, and we will always have it, and it's just there and for us to enjoy, because this is a free country. Everybody understand it. And it took me a while to really understand that our freedom is at risk. And that's when I started to notice things that remind me of the Cultural Revolution, such as political correctness. That was in the 90s. I already started to notice, hey, this really reminds me of the Cultural Revolution. It gets worse and worse and worse. And the turning point came in 2020, as everybody, as all, both of you and every American noticed something was not right. And we saw the riot.
Statues being toppled too, right?
Yeah, it started as a so-called protest, but we can say it's a riot. It's a riot, and to me, it is the Cultural Revolution that I experienced when I was in China. It's a cultural revolution because it's want to destroy everything that is traditional, everything that is American. In China, it's just destroy anything that is Chinese. And here is anything that is American. And one of the things is, of course, dismantling of the statues and changing names of streets, roads, institutions, even brand names, and all this, and condemning everything that we have hold as traditional value. Everything has to be destroyed. And so
family, church, religion.
Of course, family, religion, everything that is. So now people are more familiar with what Kamala has been saying. Imagine what can be unburdened by what has been. She said it over and over.
Is that a communist phrase?
Over. Yeah. It basically is destroy the past.
She says that all the time.
Yeah, destroy the past, destroy the history, destroy anything in our memory. So we can start this new path forward, as she says, over and over again. That's exactly the kind of slogan that Mao used, that we have to destroy the four olds. Anything that is old, ideas, tradition, custom, and habits has to be destroyed, because we're going to move forward to a pure land. That land has nothing but Maoism as the guiding ideology, as basically the religion for the Chinese people. So this to me is really a cultural revolution, history repeating. So in 2021, I decided I have to do something. So I joined the Loudoun Republican Committee, and eventually went to the Loudoun School Board and made that comment, which went viral. It was very surprising to me.
I remember that.
Yeah, I was saying, hey, what I said is something everybody knew. It's a cultural revolution in China repeating. And of course, and I quickly realized that's something that Americans do not know. Most of Americans never heard about it. And I swear that most of the people in that room, the meeting room that pro for me, probably was the first time they're hearing about such a thing as Chinese cultural revolution. And that to me is the problem, because Americans are not taught about the history of communism, and they are not taught about the history of the Chinese cultural revolution. That is why they can't recognize what is happening here is Marxism, is communism. So eventually I decided I have to do something more than just have a little conversation here, interview there. I have to write a book. Exactly. I quit my job and then devoted an entire year to write that book. And what that book is really about is the parallels of these two cultural revolutions. What happened then, what happened now, and tell people they're the same. The same because the goal is the same, to overthrow a traditional system in order to bring in a new one. And that is in China, that's the most radical version of Marxism, Maoism. And here is really bringing a new brand of Marxism, woke Marxism.
Progressivism.
Yes.
And even President Obama said to fundamentally change our country. And that's exactly what he was trying to do.
Exactly what
and
it
is. Continues now.
Yeah. You know,
Okay.
A lot of times because we don't pay enough attention or because we lack the historical perspective, and those words kind of sounds kind of hollow, fundamentally transform America. What does that mean? That means destroy the four olds. That's exactly what it means. Destroy the four olds in America. Old tradition, old ideas. Yeah, the foundation of this country. This is Marxism. This is communism.
Do you think "Build Back Better" is a communist phrase also?
Absolutely.
Because you have to destroy it before you can build it back.
Yes. You put it all together and make perfect sense. You burn everything to the ground, literally burn
literally
the country
in
to
those
the ground.
riots.
And
Mostly
then
peaceful
you-
protest,
yeah.
yes.
And then you build back,
Yeah.
not better, you build back Marxist.
The question I have for you, Xi, is back when Mao Zedong, constructed his plan to create the Chinese Cultural Revolution. It was obvious that he was the one administering it. Is there someone that you can put your finger on that's administering it here in America?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's important for people to know. When I say history repeats itself, it really means, like Mark Twain said, it rhymes. It's never exact the same. People say, how can that be a cultural revolution? We don't have a figure like Mao. That's true. That's true. In China, there is Mao. And here, there's a group of people. And they are globalists. You don't see all of them. You see some of them. They are the ones behind all this. Mm-hmm. And it did not start today. And it did not start yesterday. It started decades ago. And we can go back to the 30s. And so this is because the history is hidden from us. And they work patiently. And little by little, they took over the universities. What is the significance? When you take over universities, you really were able to produce the people you want, which is Marxists. Yeah. So for decades, they have been producing brainwashing. Yeah, brainwashing decades of generations of Marxists. Where are they now? Where are they now? They're in our schools. They're running our institutions. They're in our government. They're in our political parties. And they are in our militaries. So that's what I say, that communist takeover of America is complete. The infiltration is complete. You say, that sounds kind of a little bit too much. Okay, just do one thing. Wherever you find DEI, that's proof. And almost like in all institutions today, there is DEI office, there are DEI officers. Who are they? Right. They are communist commissars. And that's the same kind of people that I'm familiar with growing up in China. There is a political commissar in every institution. Make sure all of us follow the party line.
That's right.
So that to me is a very simple way to find out whether communist infiltration in America is complete. It is complete. It is everywhere.
Yeah, there's a story, a saying that's been out there for years that things happen slowly until they happen all at once. In my estimation, we have reached the all at once period.
That's so true. I think that is so true. I would say that all at once is not 2020. I think all at once is 2016. And all of a sudden, the radical communists, Marxists, left, progressives, Democrats, they were scared. Something unusual happened. And they were just doing their program just happily and steadily. And most people paid no attention. And there come a troublemaker. And his name is Donald Trump, right? And they were scared because of that. To turn the heat.
Upset the cart.
Yeah, to turn the heat too fast and too high and too quickly. And then what happened? People, like a lot of us, including me actually, feel like, oh my God, we are the boiling frogs. And we were thinking we're taking the jacuzzi, and all of a sudden we feel the heat. That is the turning point. And then, because they really, really get desperate, and then they push their agenda and they push it far, far, far to the left, that woke up more and more people. So I think it's a blessing in disguise. So now, as like the two of you probably belong to one of those that I talk about. I myself that really realize the urgency that something is not right, and something, like you here we have so many Asian immigrants in Fairfax and Loudoun. And mostly we are very quiet. And it's typical Asian is like, just quiet and never get involved in something like a political.
Passive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that changed me because I realized if I don't do anything, I am going to live under communism again. And that's not something I can accept. I escaped communism.
Nobody should accept. Nobody
exactly.
At all.
And here's the thing. When I say that, I don't want to live under communism again. Nobody does. But the problem is so many people, because they're so brainwashed, they don't know what communism is. They absolutely have no idea. And that's why I feel like this is my mission, to wake up people, to tell Americans we are now in the phase 1 of the communist revolution. You guys have no idea what followed. What I did experience it. In the 1949 was the time that Communist Party took over China. And they have such popular support. And you say today, half of the country support the Democrats. In China back then, I would say over 90% of the Chinese population support the Communist Party because it's a promise, heaven on earth. It sounds so good. And that include my parents. They both joined the revolution and become a Communist Party member, because they believe that's what will help China. And then by the time they found out it's not the case, it's too late. And that's what I'm trying to tell American people. We're in phase 1. DEI, it's just a tactic to get us there. And the communists, they never care about equity. Their equity is everyone, to bring everyone down to the lowest level, and so that everyone has equal share of poverty, misery, and oppression. And they don't care about diversity. What they care is people obey and follow them. All this, I've seen it before. And the phase 2, by the time, you find out, it will be too late. People say, we have a Second Amendment. We can fight. Yes, you can fight. But what they will do once they're in power, they will disarm everyone. And so you can vote your way into communism. You'll have a hard time fight your way out because you will be disarmed. So here we are. We are 19 days away from this most consequential election I would say in American history, the most. Because people say, okay, how about the 1860s election? Yes, that election, the slavery is on the ballot. So is today. And today it's not the slavery of preserving slavery in the South. Today is bringing in slavery to the entire country. So we will be living under the communist dictatorship. That is what's on the ballot. And that's what people should understand and vote for your own freedom.
When we first met, you were supporting my election campaign in 2023. And I was actually telling people, I'm not sure if you ever heard it, but for the benefit of our audience, is back in 1985, I was the spokesperson for the Democrat Party of Allegheny County. And it was then, over 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago, that they approached me and said, we need to make sure that you're okay with the direction we're going nationally. They had come down from the DNC. They had told me that they were going to move our country into a socialist state. And I asked them, I said, well, so what exactly does that mean? And they said, well, we're going to have to, and the word they used was indoctrinate our children from a young age all the way through college. And they told me how they were going to do that was influence the educators by simply taking over the school boards and also fueling and funding the teachers unions so that they would be beholden to them, and they wanted to replace American history with world history. Well, that did take place, and they also said they were going to fund colleges, wings in colleges, so once again they'd be beholden to them. And as far as their plan was concerned, I could have possibly accepted that, depending upon what they were trying to indoctrinate our kids to. Mm-hmm. But when they said, and this is a quote now, the hardest part is going to be to win over the elderly, the older generation, because we know they would rather die than to give up their freedoms, which is what they would have to do in socialism. And I says, well, how are you going to address that? And this is what they said: we'll help them die. And I says, excuse me? And they said, and in doing so, we'll also take care of the Social Security problem and Medicare at the same time. And I said, and how are you going to do that? This is 1985. They said, we'll introduce a pandemic. Well, at that point, I just wrote them off thinking they're crazy. They're just blowing smoke. That's never going to happen. And I just dismissed it. Well, here we go, a speed ahead 30, 40 years later, it's all coming to pass. Yeah. What they told me in 1985, we have seen. And that's really what got me involved in the election in the first place, because I knew I've got to do something, just as you knew you had to do something. So what you're saying here and what we're seeing is absolutely true. And the old saying is things happen slowly until they happen all at once. We have seen now the point where it is all happening at once. And we need to let America know. And I thank you so much for writing this book and publishing it and doing all that you're doing just to tell your story, because it's an important story that everybody in America has to hear. Is there anything in closing that you can offer, any advice that you could personally offer that would be redeeming and give us some hope, please?
I ask myself that question every day, but I'm just saying that the fact that we're involved, the fact that we're even doing this Zoom conference for your show means people are waking up more and more every day. Not enough, not fast enough, but the fact more and more waking up, not just waking up, we're devoted. And I think there's a great hope. Right now, there's nothing more important than make sure we win this election. And so when that happened, we still have a long way to go to save this country. But the first step is to win this election.
Well, right now, that's right. Vote the ones who would be changing our country in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. Vote them out. You're fired, as President Trump would say. So yes. God bless you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing, for all your hard work, and for hanging in there and putting up the good fight that you are.
Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This year's presidential election is most critical for the survival of our nation. Only with extreme scrutiny by American people can we be assured our elections are true and honest. Be very watchful at all levels of government. Let those individuals responsible for counting and reporting votes know in no uncertain terms that any suspicious activity will be immediately reported to the authorities and posted online. Please visit Operation Eyeball to see all the many ways elections have been altered by malicious actors right before our eyes. We cannot rely on conventional law enforcement channels to catch all these criminals and bring them to justice. We are all called to action. We need to be vigilant and watchful. Go to OperationEyeball.com. Keep in mind, it is illegal for non-citizens to vote anywhere in the United States in a federal election. Come to Operation Eyeball, offer your tips and suggestions. There is a reward for any tips that lead to the arrest and conviction of anyone attempting to alter the election illegally. Go to OperationEyeball.com.
So what do you think, Cindy?
I think VanFleet did an excellent job when she was talking about this book. And when she says unburden what has been and build back better, she was talking about communism. Mm-hmm. And she pointed it out before people could really even see.
That's right. So we encourage you folks, if you can, pick up a copy of this book. It's available in all bookstores and on Amazon. And you can also get it as an ebook, if I'm not mistaken. And please start reading it so you can understand what we're going through here in America right now. Has all happened before. And it will happen again if we allow it to. But what we have to do is we have to vote. We have to make sure the integrity of our vote is strong and that the cheating doesn't occur. And that the American people, what we believe in, our patriotic hearts are heard and recorded in history as that we stood up for American values and voted for American values. So thank you again for joining us here on HonorThyVote.com. We encourage you to go to Operation Eyeball, and you can also see a list of folks that have been arrested and convicted of the bad deeds, so trying to meddle in our election. The cheaters cheat and the riggers rig. And we need to do all we can to stop that. But until next time, have a good day.